Welcome back to this episode of the Shooting Bricks podcast. And if game three was, I don't know what to call game three. If game three sucked, game four was the complete opposite of that because my God, what a game. But before we get into all that, as always, I'm Jerry Castillo and I'm joined by.
Hashtag Suns 2021 champions. I'm Daniel Nguyen, and I'm joined by.
We have to get a shout out to the Space Jam shirts
A
that we got going on because
Yeah.
that drops on Friday. So before y'all watch that movie, tune into this episode. But it's your boy, Really Real Gerrel Sales. And of course, wait a minute. We got a guest coming back for this episode. Who we got? Who we got on the podcast today?
That's right. We are back. It's Dylan from the Midwest, repping the Milwaukee Bucks.
And speaking of the Milwaukee Bucks, wow, what a game from them. Especially Giannis, shout out. And Dylan, I know the first quarters, let's say, of game four was kind of alarming for me. I don't know about you, but it was for me because I saw Giannis kind of laboring up and down the court. He got pulled really early, I think in the first, and then he came back like midway or almost to the end of the first, and he still looked gassed. What did you make of that?
Yeah, it was really odd. It was a lot like game three where he, called himself out with about 8.5 minutes left in the first. And I don't know if he's got, a little bit of the yips right away, if he's, just coming out and the moment's too big for him right away, which is strange. But yeah, it was super weird. And I'm not entirely sure what's going on in it, but it worked in game three and it worked in game four. So if he's got to do it for game five, let him have it.
Right. Right. And we're talking about having like these big games and Devin Booker, obviously we have to talk about D Book. G, you talked about it last week. He can't be a role player. This game he went for 42 on 7 of 28. He didn't really do anything else, but what was there anything that you liked about Devin Booker's game today? Or tonight, I should say?
I mean, you mentioned it already. He put up buckets. That's what Devin Booker's known. So I will never understand the Kobe comparisons, although the offense, I guess. But Kobe is an all-around player. But let's not focus this on Kobe. I know you told me to focus on the positives, but there's just a lot of negatives in today's game for Devin Booker, in my opinion. I know he scored 40 points, but I know he has that edge on him, but you have to be a smart player. Chris Paul wasn't getting his shot. So the Suns desperately needed Devin Booker in those stretches where he was sitting on the bench because he was in foul trouble. Get out of your head, bro. You can't be extra when you have 4 fouls. The game is on the line. This is a closeout game. And we'll talk about some other Suns players later on in this podcast episode, but that's what I have to say about Devin Booker.
All right. D.
Uh, yes, Devin Booker kind of made a lot of mistakes at the end. I thought, towards the end of the fourth quarter, I thought he should have fouled out. If like you guys know what play I'm talking about. At the
Absolutely.
tail end of the fourth quarter, he had. Yeah, it wasn't a perfect performance, but I was actually quite impressed with Devin Booker's performance. Obviously, 40 points is nothing to scoff at. That's an incredible
42.
performance. Yeah, too. And like what's impressive was he broke out of a rut, and the fact that he broke out of a rut despite a loss is an encouraging sign for Phoenix. So I still believe that the Suns are inevitably going to pull out this series.
Okay. We'll get into that like a little bit later on, but
He living and dying by that.
He's been living and dying on it since the Brooklyn series. So
I mean, fair enough the way they played. I mean, they were playing well, but then there was just something about this game. It looked like they had it in the bag. But shout out to Giannis because his two defensive plays down the stretch was just incredible. That block on Aiton, and then playing enough defense to make Chris Paul misguide. I don't know what happened there, but he just lost the ball. And Dylan, I know you got to be excited to see the defensive player of the year multiple times, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but
one on the defensive, but two-time MVP.
there we go. There we go. You got to love how he's getting into like the thick of things really late in the game.
Yeah, it's great to see it late. It was strange that they came out and he seemed gassed right away, but those third quarters are really big for him. He usually comes out, he starts slashing and gashing, he starts, kind of manning up, he plays hard defense. I think just a lot of times maybe he just needs that halftime to, kind of collect his thoughts from the first half. And he usually just comes out swinging. And, like you mentioned, that block on Aiton at the end of the fourth was huge. He came in and he was absolutely phenomenal in the fourth. And, he might not have put up, all the points or anything like that. Shout out to Khris Middleton. But yeah, Giannis was an absolute animal, and he really kind of grounded out there at the end. He had that foul on Jay Crowder, but I mean, he's just going for it, man. He wants this, and he's not stopping.
Yeah. If last game was his 40-point explosion, this game was Khris Middleton. And it kind of showed that, for all the garbage that we say about Khris Middleton, I once referred to him as a discount Paul George, which is not meant to be a slight in any way. It's just that he's just a tier below Paul George. But, am I wrong in saying that? Just quickly. I mean, I'm not wrong in saying that. At least I don't think so.
I mean, I kind of agree what you're saying there, Jared. He's definitely he is kind of a poor man's Paul George. He's definitely a good he's definitely a good player. He can be a valuable part of a championship team. But I want to say this about Khris Middleton's performance tonight. I think he is the MVP tonight for the Bucks. Giannis, let's be clear, he wasn't himself tonight. He was a shell of himself tonight. Giannis couldn't really do anything until the fourth quarter. Khris Middleton took the leadership role for this Bucks team and carried this team through the first three quarters and let Giannis carry it to the end. So this Bucks victory is completely on Khris Middleton, and we should give him credit where credit is due.
I disagree with you, Jared. I can't say that Khris Middleton is a poor man's Paul George because a discount Paul George because he's an all-star. He's representing Team USA. When I think of you saying a discount player, I'm thinking of a role player. Like we just throw that name out because they have spurts of doing something that may be similar to an all-star player. But I can't say that an all-star player that's playing for Team USA is a discount player. So that's my spill on it.
I think the only reason why I think of that is because I think of Paul George as a top 10, top 15 player and Khris Middleton as a top 20, top 30 player.
And I think that just makes my point even that much better because they're both in the top 30 of the NBA. And you just called him a discount player.
But one is in the top 15.
It's still those are still the best players in the league. So to call that's that's just my feel. That's just my argument on it.
Fair enough. And yeah, he did drop 40 points and he was just outstanding, especially his late game shot making. I think, and a lot of people probably should on Twitter probably say that he's going to be the number one option moving forward, as wrong as that sounds. A lot of people really discount his clutch gene. I mean, I've always been a proponent of him being the main guy you give the ball to once the game is on the line, because we've seen it one time against I think it was the Boston Celtics a few years ago. He hit a near half-court three-point shot to send it to overtime, and that was just one incredible friggin' shot. I think there was 7/10 of a second left, and that was just pure money. From then, I was a believer. And Dylan, you've seen a lot of this. Any thoughts on Khris Middleton's performance tonight?
I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, you can't say enough about the guy. He's a complete player. He can make every shot on the court. I think people don't give him a lot of credit. It's because he's not flashy. He doesn't have the athleticism that you want out of your big name players. But, he can be inconsistent at times, but he's that pull for the defense that, they know that he's going to be the guy taking the shots. So the defense will kind of collapse on him in the fourth. But, I mean, he can dish. He can hit every shot. He's vastly underrated on defense. I think, Khris has been doing this a long time. And, now he's on the big stage and he's stepping up. So, Kendrick Perkins says, he's the Batman and Giannis is the Robin. I don't give a shit. I don't care who is Batman, who is Robin. Together, they are absolutely special. They play off each other fantastically. They've been doing this for 8 years. They built this team from the ground up. Khris Middleton doesn't get enough credit, and I think he's higher on your top 30 list than maybe you give him credit for. It's hard comparing him to Paul George, but I don't know. Bias, I take Khris Middleton. Playoff P is not a real thing.
Pandemic P. All right, go ahead, Daniel. You had your.
Look, I totally get what Dylan is saying about Khris Middleton. Khris Middleton is a good player, and yes, I do bag on Khris Middleton a lot. I think he deserves more credit than he's getting. But my question is, can he play this consistent with this Bucks team like he did tonight for the rest of the series? And And the answer to this question as of right now is no. Look at what he's been doing all playoff series long. Look at the Atlanta series. He had the first 2 games of that Eastern Conference Finals. He had 15 points, and then in the early games of this series, he also had a couple shitty performances. So I still question whether Khris Middleton can still, play 3 to 5 good performances in a row, because that's what this Bucks team needs right now. And because Giannis is he's having a tough time, even though he's played gracefully in this final series so far.
I think that's always the issue with Khris Middleton, and I'm gonna let you hop in, G, real quick. But I think that's the thing with Khris Middleton. He has these performances where it's super subpar, but then as the series goes on, he kind of gets his footing a little bit, right? He starts to wisen up to what defensive schemes are being run against him, against Giannis, against whatever. And we'll talk about defensive schemes in a little bit, but I think that's what happens with Middleton. He just takes a little bit to warm up, but when he does, he's on fire. But go ahead, G, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I agree here. And it's, people are going to talk about the coaching and stuff, but I feel like that's a big component here. I feel like, just correct me if I'm wrong, Dylan, but a lot of times in the first half, we're trying to get Giannis to get going. We want to focus on him, the number one option. And then when it comes down to the second half, it's like, okay, Giannis isn't that closer. So now we need to kind of force the ball in Khris Middleton's hand. And this is my example would be that Budenholzer took Khris Middleton out what it was 7 minutes in the fourth quarter. And it was like, why did you take him out? So those instances right there, I feel like doesn't allow Khris Middleton to be Khris Middleton. When we saw Giannis out in the conference finals, the last 2 games, Khris Middleton was in his bag. I think Khris Middleton is probably the most consistent player on his team, given what he does. And this is why I take the knock on him. Didn't bag on him, but I take the knock on him being a second to third option, because he's not going to consistently do superstar level things, but he's going to consistently do what he does. He's an all-around player, much to what Dylan said. He's going to give you some effort on defense. He's going to facilitate, and he's going to give you at least 15 points, like Daniel said. And you say that as a bad thing, but I mean, playoff basketball, sometimes you gotta roll with what you got.
Yeah.
Just a little piggyback off that. I think when Khris Middleton is inconsistent and he doesn't have his greatest games, like you mentioned, in the last 2 games of the Atlanta Hawks series, he took over. He was the guy they needed him to be. And I think sometimes, and I was talking about this the other day, it's almost like when Giannis is healthy and in, Khris Middleton will kind of make it like a dichotomy. It's either he's going to give it all to Giannis or he's going to take it all himself. When Giannis is in and doing his thing, they kind of just push it onto Giannis and say, here, you kind of take us away, when they need to play more, team ball. Because he and Giannis on the pick and roll, devastating. But they just don't do it enough. They get away from it too often.
Yeah. And I think that's something they need to do more of moving forward. I don't know what's going on with Giannis. I mean, if his early game thingamabobs, whatever you want to call it, is going to keep persisting, I guess that's something that they need to really pay attention to. But as long as they keep running that pick and roll, because like you said, it's devastating. But something that I also want to kind of get into was the fact that one of the players that was really, really talked about coming into the series was Jrue Holiday. And this game, I don't really know what to say about Jrue Holiday's 13 points, 4 of 20 shooting. And, he did have 3 steals, 7 assists, and, 7 rebounds, but he was just kind of a non-factor in this game. I don't know if he had one. I feel like he has these moments where he'll break out and be the star that he needs to be, but then he'll just revert back into something else. I don't know why that happens. Have you guys been seeing this too?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think Jrue Holiday he's a solid player, but he's definitely not. I will say this right now, with the whole trade before this season began, he definitely has not really lived up to the hype. When Jrue Holiday came to Milwaukee, we all kind of hyped him as this kind of second or third option, this guard that Milwaukee needed. He has definitely not turned out so far. And in the postseason, he's had his moments, but I feel like he's been a non-factor, not just this series, but all postseason long. It's been strictly Giannis has been carrying the weight on his team, with Khris Middleton, levying off the pressure. So I just don't think Jrue Holiday, he's not giving the impact Milwaukee needs right now, in my opinion.
All right, go ahead, G. Looks like you're chomping at the bit over there.
There was just so much like rebuttal I had as soon as you said that he was a non-factor all the playoffs. And the first image that comes to my mind, I know Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant, but the game that he guarded Kevin Durant just made it tough. Jrue Holiday's been a staple on the defensive end. I know he's shooting horrible, but playoffs is known for this. We've seen Kobe shoot horrible, and I'm a Kobe fan, and you should know this too. When it comes to the playoffs, it's so much difficult. And you talk about young players like Trae Young. Remember, he was shooting inconsistent all playoffs long. So I'm not trying to defend Jrue Holiday, but to sit here and say he's a non-factor, what have you been watching, Daniel? I'm sorry, I had to come for you right there. But
I don't know. He just doesn't feel like he's on the court sometimes, man.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because I made this argument as well that he doesn't get the ball in certain instances. But I feel like he is the guard that the Bucks needed, but I don't think they still needed more. Like, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't the end all be all to fix all the problems the Bucks needed at the guard position. But you always need a defensive staple that can have these games where he can get 15 to 20 points, 5 to 12 assists. And you just really just said that, like, he didn't close out the conference finals averaging a double-digit assist. You said he was non-existent. Oh, that's where the argument gets me, because you said all playoffs. Like, you just looking at this series and said all playoffs, he's just been horrible. But he hasn't. He's just been inconsistent. But I've even mentioned this before. He's not that guy. He's not the third. He's a third option in my opinion. But he's not like I said, he's not filling in the roles of everything that the Milwaukee Bucks need, because they still need that shot creator at the one position. And Jrue Holiday looks more of like a 2 off ball 1, in my opinion, for this Bucks team.
So moving forward, would it make sense if they just switch Middleton as being the 1 and Holiday as the 2? Because it seems like, and I mentioned this last pod, I think that is the way to go. Because when they had Middleton bring up the ball, he's a better, I don't want to say he's a better overall kind of point guard, but he is a better facilitator because he has the height to see over, tall defenders that Jrue Holiday may not be able to do.
I think I completely agree with.
Go
sorry.
You're good. You're good.
Sorry about that, but I absolutely agree with that statement, Jarrod. Sorry, Dylan, for interrupting you, but
you're good, man.
I just think for all his inconsistent performances, Khris Middleton will have these monsters nights, like what we saw tonight. And Jrue Holiday, like I said before, sometimes it feels like he's not on the court. And the difference is Khris Middleton, I feel unlike Jrue Holiday sometimes, I feel like Khris Middleton is the type of player that will kind of tip the balance of a potentially winning a series. So yes, and Khris Middleton is a better facilitator. So yes, I agree with that statement, Jen, 110%.
Thank you. That's like one of the few things we actually agree on. But go ahead, Dylan.
It's tough because we see Jrue miss so many at the rim. I think that is just absolutely the biggest killer. He misses bunnies, he misses layups, and there's shots that you make. There's shots that everyone makes. You're in the NBA. You make those shots. But he does so much that doesn't fill up the stat sheet. Like without his defense, the Bucks are not where they are right now. That guy guards 1 through 5. He's so strong for his size. He can rebound, but it's his offense that and we talked last time about the hero ball. Jrue is like the guy that is the biggest criminal when it comes to hero ball. He'll come down. He doesn't look. He tries to dribble too many times. In the first couple games when he dribbled more than, 3 times, he couldn't shoot worth a damn. When he comes down, he takes his time. He doesn't try to play the hero ball. He's fantastic. I mean, he's not going to be the guy that's going to, always, play the Khris Middleton role, but he's so good on defense and he's so sticky and he puts so much pressure on defense. He's been absolutely huge. It's just frustrating to see him play the hero ball. And then when he does it, misses shots at the rim. It's maddening.
Yeah. And I think that going to your point before you hop in here, G, of Jrue Holiday's defensive presence, I think that's why Chris Paul has 15 turnovers in his last 3 games. So just adding more to that, because there are times when he was just punishing Chris Paul whenever he tried to like do some sort of move or whatever, or like even down on the block. Because of his size, he's 6'4", 220 maybe. Like you can feel all of that. So yeah, I totally agree. He is a defensive monster and stuff that doesn't appear on the stat sheet. So, but go ahead, G, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, exactly. You need those players on your squad, but I know I'm just being the bad guy today, but I'm gonna have to disagree with you, Jarrod. I
Okay.
understand Chris Middleton. We're seeing him as a better facilitator, although he's on his career average is about 3.8 assists a game compared to Jrue Holiday's, which is 6.4, because Jrue Holiday is closer to a point guard than Chris Middleton. I'm gonna say that that's not what's needed. Keep Chris Middleton at the 3 position, move Jrue Holiday to the 2, and somehow, some way, the Bucks need a point guard. They need a true point guard. That's my answer to the question. But what does it hurt to try Chris Middleton at the 1 for the finals? It's the finals. You need to switch up something, but they don't need to switch it up now because they just went on a 2-0 streak at home, so it doesn't matter.
Right? I mean, they have at most 3 games, so why not tinker, right? And we're talking about tinkering. Well, something that I noticed, I think it was kind of strange because the Bucks went with a too big lineup in the third, and that didn't help them at all. And we were discussing defensive schemes earlier. I don't think that is a scheme that should ever be implemented moving forward because when the Suns went small and the Bucks remained big, that's kind of when, even when Devin Booker was out with 4 fouls in that mid to late third quarter, they still retained that lead. With Chris Paul playing poorly, Torrey Craig in there, Jay Crowder, and what's his face, Campaign, just
Cam
in
Johnson.
there. Yeah, you can't. You have to take advantage of that, especially if Chris Middleton's starting to get hot too. You have to take advantage of that, and I think Coach Bud really needs to think about whether or not he should be playing Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez at the same time, or if they should move Brook Lopez to the bench because I mean him coming off the bench and having Giannis at the 5, I think that's the most effective kind of squad. But again, with Giannis's fitness levels kind of being wonky, it's kind of a different, it's kind of a difficult situation. What do you guys think?
I definitely see your point, Jared. It's kind of a complicated situation, but in general, like I think what this playoff series has shown that, offense kills. And even though defense will win you a championship, offense is key. So I think I think going small is honestly the way to go in these playoffs. It's just how the game is today. Um, so yeah, I think, the Bucks need to really think carefully when you're adjusting this lineup, especially against this Suns team who which they are so guard oriented. Because if you try to go big on them, they will find a way to go around it.
And they did in the third quarter because even though Devin Booker was out,
Absolutely.
they built a 6 point lead heading into the fourth, which they ultimately surrendered and lost the game. But still, that's not the point. The point is the matchups didn't favor bigs, but Coach Bud still kind of kept it that way. G, Dylan, if you guys have
Yeah, I
I
mean,
wonder. Go ahead.
go ahead, Dylan. Go ahead, Dylan.
Uh, just real quick, I wonder if them putting Brooke back in for a while had anything to do with PJ Tucker getting into foul trouble too. Like
Mhm.
it's obviously better when Brooke sits and when they go small, but Brooke just can't navigate the paint. He can't navigate the block, especially when they're running those rolls with Booker. He's just getting too many open looks at the top of the key. So I totally agree. I think going small is way better, but I think part of it might have been attributed to PJ Tucker being in some foul trouble and them just needing to put harder defense out there. But go ahead, G.
Yeah, just you hit the nail on the coffin there. I think their defensive scheme has been pretty solid. It's been making players uncomfortable. You can't shut down the entire Suns team. So they did their job today with Chris Paul. Devin Booker, of course, went off, and I think what's his name, Jeff Van Gundy made a great point today that we just completely forgot about Dante DiVincenzo. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Somebody.
Vincenzo.
There we
Vincenzo.
go. He's a two-way player. He was averaging 10 points in the regular season, and I feel like he's a combo guard, can kind of guard 1 through 3. So I think they're missing that element here. And if you have him on the court with Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, throw PJ Tucker and Giannis at the 5, we can switch everything. That's gonna be tough. So I think that's what the Bucks are really missing when it comes to their defensive schemes.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, I think that that's kind of like the main thing that the Bucks should ultimately kind of strive for moving forward is, Brook Lopez has been a great starter his career, but I think it's time to sit him on the bench, have Giannis be the 4-5 moving forward, starting off games because if he's the 4-5, they're just unstoppable. I think so.
They can't do it all game. It's similar to the AD situation. We
Mm.
have to start. We have like you can't have him go up against Ayton all game.
Okay.
You see how tired it is in the beginning of the game. Why would you do that?
Well, I mean, hopefully by the start of next season and beyond, he has better fitness levels, right? That's the hope.
Yeah.
But speaking of Ayton, very, very quickly, and this is for the Laker fans on the pod, like the way that Ayton is playing, is he what the Lakers thought Andre Drummond would be?
Absolutely.
I mean, just because
yes, of course.
Because
but we didn't get that.
You guys got a dude who's complaining about NFTs and his coach. So
yes,
I feel attacked right now. I feel attacked.
It's not an attack. I'm just because I'm watching him play. Dude had 17 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocked shots. And he only had 6 points. He was just a pest, dude. That's why I kind of brought it up, because the similarities right now, yeah. Sorry if I offended you. My bad.
Nah, I mean, go ahead, Daniel.
Apology, Gerrel, but we wanted what we wanted out of Andre Drummond was a big that can do the dirty stuff, get the boards, play rough defense, and we didn't really get that. So DeAndre Ayton is filling that role for Phoenix beautifully this postseason, and I think that's going to be a firm reason why the Phoenix Suns will ultimately win this series in 6.
Dang. Anyone have a counter like that? I think that's number 3 or 4 already in a 26-minute span. We'll
I'm not gonna say I was expecting DeAndre Ayton because Drummond is a former All-Star and rebound leader, but I was expecting what we got from Damian Jones, but just more rebounds. That's all I was expecting. I wasn't expecting crazy numbers like 10 points at least, and being able to just finish a dunk and a layup. But not DeAndre Ayton numbers. DeAndre Ayton is the number 1 overall pick in his draft class. So I was thinking Damian Jones, what he was doing for the Lakers, his short time there, but just giving us 20 boards a game. So very disappointed, but shout out to Ayton.
Yeah, shout out to him. Good job on him. And one more Phoenix Sun we need to talk about, because we talked about him last pod. Jay Crowder. He didn't go 0 for 9 or whatever, and the Suns lost again. So he really needs to step up his game or whatever.
Facts.
Or step down his game, I should say. Because every time they play well, they lose. But anyways, here's a few more things here before we wrap things up and head into the quick hitters. Thoughts about Game 4, very quick thoughts on Game 4 and the series moving forward. Daniel, you still have the Suns, we know. Do you still have them in 6?
I am going to play the LeVar Ball playbook here, and I will say it into existence. The Suns are winning this series in 6. They will have a retaliation game on Saturday. They will win Game 5. They will win on the road in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they will win their first championship in franchise history. I will say it into existence. Suns in 6.
Suns in 6. All right. Go ahead, G.
I don't know if you heard the knock. I was knocking on wood because all of these outrageous claims you've been making all playoffs has been jinxed. You're going to jinx the Suns to losing this finals and fumbling the bag here. Thoughts on this game? Sloppy. Didn't like it at all. I don't like the referee whistles, all the acting going on. But I understand it. In my last game this past Sunday in my Dope League, I got fucking punched in the face on the layup, made the layup, but no call. So I guess I got to take some acting classes. But I still feel like the Suns can take this, and it's getting closer to 50-50. Like, it's really hurting my heart. Like, I can't choose, but it's going to Game 7. It's going to be a close game. Game 7, I'm still going with the Suns. Sorry, Dylan.
Hey, that's all right, man. You got to stick to your virtues. But no, I'm still saying Bucks in 6. I think at some point tonight, I feel like we were watching the Academy Awards. Jake Crowder was absolutely unreal. I couldn't believe half the shit he was doing. Drove me nuts. But yeah, I don't know. Devin Booker should have fouled out. Can't get over that.
Fact.
But yeah, that first quarter was a nightmare. It really just, it started to get going at the end of the third. Really thought that the Bucks finished out really well. Defense was great. I still, I think they're gonna go into Phoenix and steal the next one and bring it back home for Bucks in 6. Bucks in 6.
Wow.
Delusion.
Wow. Okay. I'm not gonna say Bucks in 6. I'm gonna say Bucks in 7, but I'm with you. They're gonna take one in Phoenix. They're gonna lose the next game in Milwaukee, and then they're gonna win on Phoenix's home court.
Oh,
So a little bit of a spicy take,
I like it.
but also shout out to Devin Booker for recording the most points scored in their first career postseason because he has more than 532. Shout out to him. That's crazy. Dude can just flat out ball. And when people say be
Kendall was
legendary,
proud.
what?
Kendall was proud.
Oh yeah, sure. Kendall, A Jenner. But anyways, just a few more quick hitters here before we wrap things up. So the WNBA All-Star game was tonight, and it was Team WNBA versus Team USA. Team WNBA beat Team USA 93-85 behind Arika Ogunbowale's, 26 points. And just a few more quick tidbits about the WNBA. Through 16 games, viewership is up 44% from last year, which, if you guys recall, was the highest or most viewed season ever because of the pandemic. So that's cool. The Aces versus Wings game last Sunday averaged 643,000 viewers, making it the most watched regular season game since 2012, according to ESPN PR. So good stuff on the WNBA. And even more kind of WNBA news, and G, I know you love this. So WNBA 2K22, it's going to come out on September 10th, but the covers were released today, and it's going to feature Luka Doncic, Dirk Nowitzki, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Kevin Durant. More impressively, and I think this is what G is going to be really happy to know, Candace Parker is the first woman to grace the cover of an NBA 2K game. So shout out to her. She will be on the WNBA 25th anniversary special. So nice. Can't wait to get that. She really does. She was playing very well at the All-Star game. I don't know if you guys saw that, but she was playing very well at the All-Star game, and she was just having a blast, which everyone should do. And shout out to Allie Quigley for being a 3-time WNBA three-point shooting competition champion. Yeah, that's a mouthful, but shout out to her. She is like her shot is just amazing. It's kind of like a set shot, but she knows how to play. And lastly here, Kawhi Leonard got surgery for a partially torn right ACL. Very, very, very quick thoughts on if he's going to sit next season because it is a torn ACL. So, do you guys think he's going to sit next season? I say yes. Daniel?
That feeling is partially, but he'll be back during the midseason. He'll make his return, but he's gonna have a long adjustment period.
Fair. I mean, next year is his kind of like his weird free agency year where he can decide whether or not he wants to play because he's going to get a max contract regardless. But go ahead, you.
It's Kawhi. He's sitting out the whole season.
Yeah, fair enough. Dylan?
He's the Terminator for a reason. I say that he starts no later than the All-Star break.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. All-Star break. But with all that being said, Dylan, again, thank you so much for hopping on. I know that, this series is probably raising your blood pressure, giving you heart palpitations and all that. But glad to see you're feeling okay, especially considering the Bucks are now tying the series, or have tied the series, I should say. So for anyone who wants to, follow you on Twitter, Instagram, whatever have you, where can they find you?
At Dill Hill, across all platforms, Insta and Twitter. Catch me at Stropesy. Yeah, that's about it.
Right.
Not
Cool.
not too much, not too little, but find me all the same.
All right. And I'm pretty sure people will find you all the same. And for all those listening, don't forget to subscribe to the Shooting Bricks podcast and leave a review on your platform of choice. It really helps us out. Lastly, make sure to follow us on @PodcastBricks on Twitter, @Shooting Bricks Podcast on Instagram, and @The Shooting Bricks Podcast on YouTube for all the news and the video of this episode of the Shooting Bricks Podcast. And as always, I'm Jarrod Castillo.
Suns in 6. Suns in 6. And I'm Daniel Nguyen, and I'm joined by...
Let's just have a great NBA Finals and enjoy basketball, celebrate life. It's your boy, really real, Gerrel Stills. And just one more time, our special guest for this episode is...
Very grateful. Dylan Hildebrandt, thanks for having me on, guys.
We're glad to have you on. And for everyone else, we will see you guys next time.